Okay, let's be real for a sec. You know that whole, like, being in your 20s thing?
Yeah.
It can be a lot. Career stuff, relationships, trying to, like, figure out who you even are.
Right. And feeling like you're messing it all up constantly.
Exactly. And that is exactly what Hulu's Queenie's all about.
Oh, totally. The show, you know it's based on Candice Carty-William's book,
Yeah, yeah.
throws us headfirst into Queenie's world,
Oh, for sure.
a young black woman in London. It's raw and honest and so relatable. You'll cringe, but you'll laugh too.
Oh, absolutely. The show just dives right in, doesn't waste any time.
No?
Queenie's boyfriend Tom dumps her right off the bat. And he says, get this, you're too much.
Ouch. Talk about a blow.
Right. Brutal.
And that whole too much thing, it becomes like a theme for Queenie.
Yeah, she's always trying to, like, shrink herself down.
Yeah, fit into these boxes that don't even fit her.
It's honestly kind of painful to watch. You see how it, like, chips away at her self-esteem?
Yeah.
And the way she copes. Not exactly the healthiest. Drinking, casual sex. She's even unreliable at work.
Yeah, Queenie's journey is not picture perfect, not like an Instagram feed, that's for sure.
Definitely not. But that's also what makes it so, I don't know, gripping. The show's not afraid to show the messy parts.
Right. It even shows the self-destructive stuff. It's a good reminder, though, you know?
Of what?
Growth isn't always pretty. Sometimes you take one step forward and, like, 2 steps back.
Oh, for sure. And then there's this whole other layer to Queenie's story. Her memories of her mom. They're all fractured.
Oh, right. Her mom, who she doesn't even talk to anymore.
Yeah, and throughout the show, you see her trying so hard to, like, push those memories down, bury them.
Yeah, it's like there's all this deeper emotional baggage she's carrying around.
Totally. Like she's running from her past.
But, you know, you can't really outrun those unresolved issues. The show makes you think, can we ever really move on without dealing with the pain from our past?
Ooh, that's a good one. Have you ever thought about how past relationships, especially the bad ones, can, like, shape how we see ourselves?
All the time.
Yeah.
And how we interact with the world. Absolutely.
And the show handles all this with a lot of compassion. It's like
Right.
it's saying, hey, Queenie, we see you. We get it. It's okay to be messy. You're allowed to make mistakes. Figure things out at your own pace.
Yeah, I like that. There's this one scene, Queenie says, maybe that's the kind of thing I like, after she hooks up with someone. Even she's not sure.
It's perfect, though.
Yeah.
It captures that whole uncertainty of figuring yourself out.
Okay.
Like she's questioning everything, her desires, her experiences, trying to figure out what feels real.
Makes sense.
And speaking of questioning, let's talk about how the show explores Queenie's identity. The reviewer we were reading, they mentioned that the show sometimes, like, over-explains her thoughts.
Interesting. Maybe it's just hard to adapt a book to the screen.
What do you mean?
Well, in a book, you get that inner monologue, you know? Easy to show what the character's thinking. But on screen, they kind of have to spell it out through dialogue sometimes.
Ah, that makes sense. That's a tough balance, I bet. It also makes you wonder how much control Queenie really has over her own story, especially since, you know, they're marketing it as the Black Bridget Jones.
Ooh, now that's an interesting comparison. Both characters in their 20s trying to figure out life and love. But, I mean, Queenie's experience as a black woman, that adds a whole other layer, stuff Bridget Jones never has to deal with.
So true. It's not just about finding a boyfriend and a job. It's about navigating being a young black woman in a world that, well, often doesn't get her.
Yeah, it makes you think about the title, Queenie. Is it ironic?
What do you mean?
Like, is she really in control?
Right.
Or is she constantly being defined by everyone else?
That is such a good point. And it makes those scenes where she's describing herself or maybe how she thinks others see her all the more interesting. Like when she says loud, brash, sassy, confrontational, bitchy.
Wow, yeah. Is that really how she sees herself? Or is that how society sees black women?
Something to think about, huh?
Definitely. We should unpack that more later.
Yeah.
But first, can we talk about the humor in the show?
Oh, yeah. There are definitely parts where it tries to lighten the mood. Like that whole bit about Queenie's super awkward gynecologist appointment.
Oh, right.
I don't know. It didn't always work for me.
Yeah, I get that. It's like the show is trying to balance all this heavy stuff, you know?
The identity stuff, the trauma.
Exactly. With some lighter moments. But the overall tone is still pretty serious.
I think that's intentional, though.
Yeah.
Like, Queenie's going through some really tough stuff.
Uh,
It wouldn't feel real if it was all sunshine and rainbows.
True, true. But you know what the show does really well?
What's that?
The relationships. Even just those little glimpses you get of Queenie with her cousin Diana and her best friend Kayazike.
You can just feel how close they are.
And it doesn't take much. A sarcastic comment from Diana, a look from Kayazike.
It says it all. They love her, they support her, no matter what.
Which makes the way they portray her ex, Tom, even weirder.
Yeah, he feels underdeveloped.
Totally. You never really get why she's so hung up on him.
Like, was it a good relationship at all?
Right. It's like the show is so focused on what's going on in Queenie's head that it kind of forgets about the other characters, especially the guys in her life.
Oh, but speaking of guys in her life, can we talk about Kazuki's cousin, Frank, for a sec?
Oh, yeah.
The way they describe his reaction to Queenie, delighted, bashful, kind of odd. It's like the show is saying, hey, this girl, she deserves to be seen, adored for who she is.
Totally. And it goes back to that idea that the show really believes in Queenie.
Believes in what?
That she deserves love, romantic love, love from her friends, her family, all of it.
It makes you think, though, if Queenie is all about finding yourself, what role do the people around us play in shaping how we see ourselves?
Are they like holding up a mirror? Or are they distorting the image?
That is the question, isn't it? And we'll keep exploring that as we dive deeper into Queenie.
After a quick break. So we're back, diving deeper into Queenie. And we left off talking about how the people around us shape how we see ourselves. It's something you see throughout the whole show.
Oh, totally. You see it with Queenie's friends, Kiesik and Diana.
Right.
They're like this amazing support system. They clearly love her, flaws and all.
For sure.
But then she's out there seeking validation from, like, people who don't even appreciate her.
Yeah, it's that age-old struggle, isn't it? Wanting to be loved, accepted, but it can lead you down the wrong path.
Exactly. Think about Tom, her ex.
Oh, right. Mr. You're too much.
Ugh, yeah. But she's still holding on to this idea that if she could just get him back, it'll, like, validate her somehow.
It's like she's taken his criticism to heart. Like she's trying to change herself into someone she thinks he'll want.
And it's not just him. You see her doing the same thing with some of the other guys she dates.
Looking for validation in all the wrong places. Makes you think, though, about the pressure on women, especially young Black women.
What do you mean?
Well, they're often told to be quieter, less opinionated. Like, to be more desirable, they have to be less themselves.
Makes you wonder if that's why Queenie feels like she has to over-explain everything, you know?
Like she's always expecting to be judged or misunderstood.
Right. But here's the thing. Queenie's journey isn't just about finding a boyfriend or fitting into some mold.
No, it's about something way deeper.
It's about self-acceptance.
You got it. The whole show seems to be leading her toward this realization. Validation has to come from within.
It's like she has to learn to love herself, all of herself, even the parts other people might find too much.
Powerful message, right?
So powerful. Because honestly, who hasn't felt like they're too much at some point? Too loud, too opinionated, too emotional, too different.
It's universal, that feeling of not quite fitting in, trying to make yourself smaller so everyone else feels comfortable.
Yeah.
But Queenie, it's like, it gives you permission to say, screw that.
Embrace your true self, messy parts and all.
Exactly.
You know, remember how we were talking about the humor in the show?
Yeah. How it doesn't always land.
And how some of the characters, like Tom, feel kind of underdeveloped. What if that's all on purpose?
What do you mean?
Like, maybe those imperfections are supposed to reflect how messy Queenie's journey is?
Okay. Yeah.
Life's not always perfect, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's awkward, it's painful, it's confusing.
That's actually a really interesting way to look at it. It's like the show itself is mirroring Queenie's own struggle to figure everything out.
Right. And maybe that's why it works. Despite those flaws, people connect with it because it feels real.
Yeah, it shows that raw experience of being a young woman just trying to navigate the world.
Which, let's be honest, can throw some serious curveball.
And it reminds us that self-discovery, it's not about reaching some perfect endpoint. It's a process.
It's about embracing the journey, bumps and all, and learning to love yourself along the way.
So I said, we're all works in progress, right?
Yeah, totally. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we want to hear from you. What parts of Queenie's journey resonate with you? Have you ever felt pressure to, like, shrink yourself down?
And what have you learned about how the people around you influence how you see yourself?
We'll be back to explore all this and more in just a bit. So we've been talking a lot about Queenie, this Hulu show based on Candice Carty-William's novel. And for me, one thing that really sticks out is how the show It's kind of like life,
What?
embraces the messiness, the fact that being human is imperfect.
It's so true. It's refreshing to see a show that's like, hey, perfect Instagram feeds. That's not real life.
Yeah. Self-discovery, it's not always pretty. It's not a straight line.
Nope. And Queenie just throws those expectations right out the window. Like, it's okay to stumble, make mistakes, question everything.
Seriously, that's such an important message, especially these days when everyone's trying to seem perfect all the time.
Right. And it goes back to what we were saying about needing validation from other people. Queenie's journey, it's like this reminder that real self-worth, it comes from you.
Learning to love yourself, accept yourself, even the parts you might not like.
Exactly. And here's where things get even more interesting. The show really explores race and identity. It doesn't shy away from it at all.
No, it doesn't.
Hmm.
Queenie's a young black woman in a mostly white world, and the show, it shows that.
All those little things, the microaggressions, the biases she faces every day.
Like woven into her whole experience.
Right.
Remember that scene where she's describing herself? Loud, brash, sassy, confrontational, bitchy. Makes you think, are those really hair words?
Mm.
Or is that what society has told her about black women?
It's a good question. Whose voice is that, really?
Yeah. And then there's the whole Black Bridget Jones thing.
Right. We talked about that before. Interesting comparison, but it kind of oversimplifies things.
It does. I mean, yeah, both characters are dealing with love and work and figuring themselves out. But Queenie's experience as a black woman, that adds a whole other dimension. Stuff Bridget Jones never had to deal with.
Exactly.
So what's the takeaway? For me, it's that Queenie pushes us to look deeper, beyond the surface level, to see the nuances of identity. It reminds us that representation matters, and that stories from people who have been marginalized, they deserve to be told in their own way.
And on top of representation, Queenie shows us resilience, hope. Even with all the challenges, she finds strength in her community, her friendships, but most of all, in herself.
Okay. We've reached the end of our deep dive, but I want to leave you with something to think about. If Queenie is about finding yourself, what's your role in your own story? Are you letting yourself be messy, make mistakes, evolve?
And are you surrounding yourself with people who support you, celebrate who you really are, like Queenie's friends do for her?
Check out Queenie if you haven't already, the show, the book, whatever. And keep thinking about these things. Keep questioning, keep growing. And remember, you are not too much. You are enough, just as you are.